Hi, I'm Pam and I'm here to talk about retro video games. Today, my review is on one of August's community playthroughs over at RF Generation. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, it's Jaws.
Jaws was developed by Westone Bit Entertainment and published by the much criticized LJN. It was released for the NES in 1987. The game is essentially a non-scrolling horizontal shooter, though there are a couple other mechanics thrown in.
The Jaws game is loosely based on the movie, but not the critically acclaimed first movie, not even the second one. It's based on the fourth and final movie, Jaws: The Revenge.
The goal of the game, as you can probably guess, is to defeat Jaws. You start out in a boat where you travel around until you randomly run into something in the water, or not so randomly run into Jaws' protruding dorsal fin. Once this happens, you get taken to an underwater screen where you slaughter all the life forms you can. Jellyfish, stingrays, and small sharks will swim across the screen and you shoot at them with your endless harpoons. Each kill can drop items, such as crabs, which speed you up, or shells, which act as the main resource of the game. You use these shells at the ports located on the overworld map. Your first 5 will be used to buy a receiver, which lets you know how close Jaws is by how fast it beeps. The next 100 plus shells will be used to buy power-ups, which will make it easier to kill Jaws. However, you can't just collect a bunch of shells, go to a port, and buy as many power-ups as you can. Instead, you have to constantly travel between them, buying from one, then the other. This gets very tedious.
This brings me to my biggest complaint about the game, the lack of variety. 90% of your game time is going to be spent on one of only 3 different screens.
There's the overworld map where you pilot your boat, then 2 screens where combat takes place, one in deep water and one in shallow. The shallow environment ends up being a little tougher since there's less room to move around, but otherwise they're pretty much the same, and each features the same few kinds of enemies. There is also a bonus stage where you bomb jellyfish from an airplane. Talk about overkill. You get bonus shells based on how many you hit in your limited number of passes. Aside from the lack of variety, the game looks alright visually. I found the models and animation of the enemy sea life the most impressive, and the overworld map is colorful and well defined. Musically, I wish we got more of that classic Jaws theme. There's a hint of it in the opening title screen, but the in-game music is a bit generic, and the shooting sound effects get a little grating after a while.
The game does have a good difficulty curve. While it starts out quite easy, it does get more challenging as you get more powerful.
Enemies get faster and will start aiming for you rather than just swimming along a set path. Jellyfish in particular went from very easy to being obviously out to get me. Another source of difficulty is your speed. Though picking up crab shells and getting a speed increase seems like a bonus, if you get too fast, your character becomes harder to control. There's some definite sliding that happens. Apparently, drag is not a thing in this ocean. The biggest difficulty is that you only get 1 life. Take a single hit from anything and you die. You do get 3 continues, but when you use one, you lose half your collected shells and a power level. This seems unnecessarily punishing.
There is one way to avoid the one-hit deaths, and it comes in the form of a mini-sub.
Though I never saw the mini-sub in my playthrough, here's a sample of it from World of Longplays. The mini-sub will let you take 1 extra hit before you die, as well as drop bombs in addition to your regular forward shots. If you happen to run into Jaws before you've purchased enough power-ups, you may as well be firing at him with a pea shooter. Attacks are ineffective and he'll leave and heal back before you can make a dent in his health. Once you think you've purchased enough power-ups, I went up to power level 8. It's time to take on Jaws. The fight is on the longer side, but the combat is the same as the rest of the game. Get him down to 0 health and he dies. Oh, wait, he came back. Of course he comes back. There's a second phase to the fight that puts you in a totally different viewpoint. Here you must use a strobe to get Jaws to surface out of the water, then spear him with the front of your boat. The objective here wasn't particularly clear. Some people seem to have an issue with the end of the game. You're presented with an end screen of a sunset. Personally, I find this to be the least of its issues. An unceremonious game over screen isn't something terribly unique to Jaws, and is seen in a number of other NES games.
Jaws is not a great game. Though it's a competent enough shooter in very small doses, by the time you've had 2 or 3 random combat encounters, everything gets quite repetitive, and the main mechanic of driving back and forth between ports in order to power yourself up just isn't a very engaging one. I would give Jaws a pass. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.